we on the brink of an eternal abyss? The apocalypse is not just a series of visions and prophecies, it is a tear in the fabric of reality, revealing the darkest horrors of divine judgment. Get ready to delve into a narrative where humanity faces its final destiny, unraveling disturbing secrets and terrifying revelations that challenge everything you thought you knew about the end of times. The Apocalypse, the last book of the Bible, begins with visions that shock and terrify. In its first chapter, John of Patmos describes a series of catastrophic events that herald the end of the world, introducing readers to a scene of devastation and chaos. These prophecies, laden with symbolism and mystery, invite us to a deep reflection on humanity's ultimate fate and the nature of divine judgment. In Revelation chapter 6, verses 1 to 17, we find the opening of the seven seals, each unleashing a calamity that engulfs the world in anguish. The first seal reveals a rider mounted on a white horse, symbolizing conquest and war. This rider represents the beginning of a period of conflict and violence, a warning of how power can unleash chaos in the world. Next, the second rider appears on a red horse, bringing with him great war and bloodshed. The scene becomes even darker with the third rider, mounted on a black horse, representing scarcity and famine, a terrifying image of the struggle for survival in times of crisis. Finally, the fourth rider, mounted on a pale horse, symbolizes death and Hades, dragging humanity towards despair and extinction. These visions of the four horsemen not only illustrate the unleashing of disasters, but also serve as warnings about the destructive nature of human sins and the suffering that follows divine justice. The question arises whether we are prepared to face such trials, not only in the apocalyptic context, but in our own daily lives. An echo of these prophecies is also found in Matthew chapter 24, verses 3 to 14, where Jesus discusses the signs of the end times with his disciples. He predicts wars, famines, and earthquakes, and warns of deception and persecution that will precede the end. Matthew chapter 24, verses 6 to 7. This passage resonates with the apocalyptic vision, showing how global events and personal crises are interconnected, reflecting the fragility of our existence and the urgency of spiritual and moral preparation. As we explore these dark prophecies, it is essential to reflect on our own inner state. Are we living in a way that prepares us to face adversities, whether large or small? These apocalyptic visions invite us to examine our lives, our faith, and our readiness to face the challenges ahead. The final judgment is a theme that resonates deeply in the apocalypse, and its dramatic climax manifests with the fall of Babylon, a symbol of corruption and decadence. This event not only marks the collapse of an earthly empire, but also the divine judgment against the power structures and institutions that have perpetuated injustice and oppression. In the apocalyptic vision, Babylon is portrayed as a luxurious and corrupt city, an epicenter of sin and arrogance. Its fall is not simply a physical destruction, but a representation of divine judgment on evil. The fact that the fall of Babylon is described in such grand and devastating terms underscores the severity of the punishment imposed on those who have defied God's laws and led nations to perdition. The image of Babylon in ruins, surrounded by the smoke of its destruction, symbolizes the absolute end of an era of corruption and sin. The fall of Babylon is also a warning to current societies about the consequences of allowing power and wealth to corrupt fundamental values. Corruption and decadence are not limited to one place or era, but are tendencies that can infect any human system. Divine judgment, in this context, becomes a call for rectification and justice. The magnitude of the punishment suggests that corrupt systems, no matter how deeply rooted, will eventually face their day of reckoning. The descriptions of the fall of Babylon and its impact on the world reflect a despair that goes beyond physical destruction. The lamentation of the kings and merchants who benefit from its corruption reveals the loss of a world order that once favored their wealth and power. The hopelessness and weeping of these characters highlight the emptiness left when a seemingly eternal and unshakable system collapses. On a personal level, this vision of judgment and downfall invites us to reflect on our own lives and actions. It challenges us to consider whether, in our small daily decisions, we are contributing to corruption or, on the contrary, are working towards justice and integrity. The fall of Babylon is a call to examine our own internal and social structures, to recognize the areas where corruption and sin may be present, and to seek a transformation towards a more just and righteous path. Ultimately, divine judgment and the fall of Babylon not only represent the end of an era, but also an opportunity for rebirth and redemption, offering a lesson on the importance of living righteously and in harmony with principles of justice and truth. In the narrative of the Apocalypse, the plagues and punishments unleashed as part of divine judgment provide a disturbing vision of the end of the world. These events are not only disastrous in their magnitude, but also reflect a profound spiritual dimension, revealing how chaos and suffering become instruments of a justice beyond human understanding. The first trumpets reveal a series of calamities that severely impact the earth. A storm of fire and hail mixed with blood is unleashed, burning a third of the earth, trees, and all vegetation. This apocalyptic image shows an environmental destruction that goes beyond natural catastrophe, suggesting a purification and a call to humanity to reflect on its relationship with the world it inhabits. Then, the second trumpet unleashes a great burning mountain that falls into the sea, turning the water into blood and killing a third of marine life. This event emphasizes the breakdown of natural systems and the devastating impact on life and the global economy. The third trumpet brings with it a star that falls from the sky, contaminating water sources and causing extreme suffering due to the lack of vital resources. The cycle of disasters continues with supernatural and horrific phenomena at the sound of the following trumpets. The fifth trumpet unleashes a plague of locusts with destructive power over humans, whose torment is so intense that they wish for death rather than suffer. This episode not only symbolizes chaos and despair, but also the sense of helplessness and spiritual torment that accompanies human desperation. Finally, the sixth trumpet releases 4 angels bound at the river Euphrates, who gather an army of horses and riders that cause widespread death and destruction. This final punishment highlights the magnitude of divine judgment and the extent of the chaos that affects all of humanity. These events are not mere disasters, but representations of judgment and purification. They invite us to reflect on our own lives and actions. The image of plagues and punishments is not only intended to shock, but also to prompt a deep self-evaluation. In times of crisis, it is essential to consider how our decisions and actions contribute to the state of the world, and how we can seek personal transformation that resonates with higher justice and reconciliation with the divine order. At the heart of the apocalypse emerge figures that embody absolute evil and the deepest deception: the great dragon and the beast. These characters are not mere symbols. They represent powerful and destructive forces that alter reality and direct chaos toward humanity. The dragon, with its terrifying appearance and infernal influence, is a being that operates in the shadows, manipulating and corrupting with cunning and malice. Its presence is felt like an ominous shadow that threatens to devour the light of justice and truth. The great dragon, described with 7 heads and 10 horns, is the epitome of chaos and rebellion. Its role is that of a primordial adversary, fighting not only against humanity, but against divinity itself. Its war is a cosmic war, a conflict between divine order and infernal disorder. In the apocalyptic narrative, the dragon represents a force that challenges the established order, introducing chaos and despair into the world. Its influence extends across the realms of earth, corrupting the hearts of men and sowing discord among nations. Parallel to this terrifying figure emerges the beast, an equally sinister entity, but with a more tangible and earthly role. The beast, with its 10 horns and 7 heads, is a manifestation of corrupt political and social power, exerting control and tyranny over the masses. This being is a figure of oppressive authority that seeks to impose its dominion through violence and deception. Its power is so vast that it seduces humanity, leading them to worship it and submit to its will. The false prophet, a close ally of the beast, plays the role of a religious deceiver who uses the power of deception to legitimize the authority of the beast. Together, they foster false worship and divert people from the truth, establishing a belief system that distorts and perverts genuine faith. The combination of the beast and the false prophet creates an environment of oppression and disorientation, where truth becomes a victim of lies and justice, a victim of injustice. These evil figures, with their corrupting and destructive influence, invite deep reflection on the power of evil in our lives and in the world. They confront us with the reality that evil can manifest in many forms, often hiding under the guise of authority and legitimacy. It is essential, therefore, to be vigilant and discern deep truths amid darkness, so as not to succumb to the temptations and deceptions that surround us. In the darkest moments of the apocalypse, when despair and hopelessness seem to prevail, 2 key figures emerge that represent unwavering resistance: the 2 witnesses. These characters, described in great detail, embody hope and faith in a world plunged into chaos. Their role is crucial, not only as bearers of divine truth, but also as examples of courage and perseverance in the face of adversity. The 2 witnesses have a sacred mission that challenges the corrupt power and the forces of evil that dominate the earth. Their task is to prophesy and denounce injustice and sin in a time when truth is persecuted and suppressed. Despite their bravery, they face fierce resistance and ruthless persecution. Their words and actions are seen as a direct threat to the established system, which responds with relentless violence. Amid their arduous mission, the witnesses endure indescribable suffering. They are persecuted, mistreated, and eventually killed by those who seek to silence the voice of truth. This martyrdom not only underscores the brutality of the apocalyptic era, but also the high cost of maintaining steadfast faith in times of crisis. The image of their exposed and despised bodies, while the world celebrates their fall, is a powerful representation of the pain and injustice faced by the faithful. This period of persecution and martyrdom highlights the tension between good and evil in its rawest form. The persecution of the saints becomes a tool to demoralize and break those who remain faithful, seeking to eliminate the influence of truth in a world of darkness. As the faithful suffer under the yoke of oppression, their faith is brutally tested, revealing the strength and determination required to remain steadfast in their convictions. In these narratives, the resistance of the witnesses and the persecution of the faithful offer a profound lesson on spiritual resilience. We face challenges and sufferings that may seem insurmountable, but these moments teach us the importance of maintaining our integrity and convictions, even when the cost is high. The sacrifice of the witnesses invites us to reflect on our own strength and commitment, and to find inspiration in those who face pain with unyielding faith. Through their example, we learn that true faith manifests not only in times of tranquility, but also in the darkest moments, when hope seems distant and suffering is palpable. The perseverance of the witnesses challenges us to examine our own lives and to find the courage to face our own trials with the same determination. Armageddon, the final battle between good and evil, is presented in the Apocalypse as a colossal confrontation that defines the fate of humanity. In this final scenario, the battlefield becomes a reflection of the eternal conflict between divine forces and the dark forces that have disturbed the order of the world. The narrative of Armageddon is not just a representation of a physical battle, but an allegory of the spiritual confrontation that every human being experiences. The climax of this battle unfolds in a context of despair and chaos. The forces of evil, embodied by the beast and its allies, gather to challenge the forces of good led by the Lamb, a representation of Christ. This conflict is triggered when evil spirits, under the influence of the beast, gather the kings of the earth in an attempt to eradicate the followers of truth and justice. The battle is fought in a symbolic place, a global battlefield that affects not only the earth, but also reflects the inner confrontation that each individual must face in their spiritual life. The brutality of the final battle is indescribable. The images are vivid and terrifying, showing a struggle that overflows the physical realm to encompass spiritual despair. The armies of darkness advance with fury, and the chaos that ensues is a tangible manifestation of the corruption and evil that have infected the world. Desolation and hopelessness take hold of the scene as the armies of light fight bravely against an unstoppable tide of darkness. Despite the drama and brutality, this confrontation also has a redemptive purpose. At the heart of the conflict, the victory of good becomes an affirmation of divine justice and the triumph of truth over falsehood. The figure of the Lamb, mounted on a white horse, represents the purity and justice that ultimately prevail over evil. This victory is not just the conclusion of a physical battle, but a restoration of the moral and spiritual order of the universe. Armageddon, then, is more than just a confrontation. It is a reminder that good and evil are in constant conflict, and that the victory of good, though difficult to achieve, is inevitable and essential for the restoration of justice and peace. In our daily lives, these stories invite us to reflect on our own internal and external battles and encourage us to stand firm in our convictions, even when the conflict seems overwhelming. The closing of the Apocalypse paints a picture of sublime transformation and eternal redemption. After the devastation and chaos that characterized the previous events, the book reveals a vision of a new heaven and a new earth, a space where the suffering and anguish of the old world are replaced by unimaginable peace and beauty. This new realm is described as a place where there is no more pain or weeping, where tears have been wiped away and death no longer has a place. The old reality, marked by corruption and decay, fades away to make way for a purified and regenerated existence. This radical contrast between destruction and renewal underscores the power of divine redemption and the commitment of the sacred to restoration and hope. The vision of the heavenly garden is even more evocative. In this new world, there is a lush garden, full of life and light, with a river of living water flowing from the throne of God. The trees of life, whose leaves serve for the healing of the nations, reflect a comprehensive restoration of creation, where harmony and fullness are the norms. The light of God replaces darkness, and the environment is filled with tranquility and purity. This is the fulfillment of a promise of redemption, a testament that, despite trials and tribulations, there is a future reality where everything is restored to its perfect and original state. This concept of renewal not only offers comfort for the future, but also has practical implications for our daily lives. It challenges us to live with the hope of a better future, even in the midst of our current struggles. The vision of a new heaven and a new earth invites us to consider how we can contribute to creating a more just and compassionate world here and now, thus reflecting the values of the kingdom that is to come. Finally, reflect on this vision. How does knowing that there is a promise of renewal and eternal peace affect your perspective on life and suffering? In the midst of your challenges, how can you keep alive the hope of a redemptive future? To continue exploring more about these profound and revealing topics, subscribe and stay tuned for our upcoming posts. Don't miss what's coming next.